What's up, everybody? Wes Dead Air Knife here with always
Typical Lydia.
Today's show, we're going to be doing the 2024 soon-to-be classic Sumala.
Oh, that's a great sound. That's a
Thanks.
great sound. I thought it was going to be Sukir. Tell the village.
They do like to rally a crowd.
Oh, man, do they ever? And can they ever? With torches and knives. And I don't like it is a reactive village. I will say that.
If all I'm saying is they could get mobs together like this in Transylvania, Dracula would never have been a problem. They would have got that guy toot sweet, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's not like 10 dudes with pitchforks. It's like 150 guys with very sharp weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really it's good cinematically. It's really works cinematically.
This is a Lydia pick, as a matter of fact.
It is too. And it is a random panic Lydia pick in that I still haven't seen Nosferatu, but really.
Oh my God.
I know, isn't that bad? But yeah, I don't really leave my house much, so I didn't see it in theaters. And it's just not being affordable to rent because they keep moving that rental date for Canada back. And I can't reconcile paying $27. So then I thought, well, I'll just go buy it now that it's out physically. Have I been out of the house since I thought that? No.
Well, as you can see, this is the trials and tribulations of the Dead Air podcast. But fear not, dear listeners. Between now and the time we are old and gray, I'll be bones. We just might be getting to Nosferatu eventually. But until then, we wanted to do this film. And what made you want to do this one over all of the other films you could have picked?
Yeah, we did have a good list of films and more vampire-related films on our docket coming up. But this film, I really liked it. It was very refreshing. I saw the one sheet on Netflix of all places. And this isn't a typical way that I choose films. I don't usually go to these streaming services and go looking for something to watch for the show. Like, that is not how this works, kids, at all. I'm sure you can tell because we do have a pretty eclectic mix of films that are beloved films for the most part, typically not new films because they're films that we've seen or own or are classics or have talked about before or keep talking about and want to watch for the show, not just random picks like this. And when it does happen, it's extremely rare. But lately I've had this idea of like when we turn on like streaming stuff, it should be like destination watching. We shouldn't like turn on a streamer to like flip through things. And we haven't had Netflix in this house for quite some time, like at least a year. So I just got it recently for whatever reason. And I turned it on and this creepy girl popped up and I was like, hey, let's watch this, whatever the hell it is. But I liked it so much. And I think the draw wasn't only just the look of the main character, monster, if you will, or demon, Sumala. It was that it's an Indonesian horror film. And in this house, we really like a good Indonesian horror or action film.
Yeah, I think that there's something really special when it comes to the film industry coming out of Indonesia. I don't know what it is, but it seems as though they really know what they're doing when it comes to crafting stories. Of course, one of my most favorite and darling horror films of all time is Indonesian, the great film Macabre, which is still to this day my go-to recommendation for somebody who wants to watch a little scene horror film that absolutely deserves your attention. So if any of you, dear listeners, first go back, listen to one of our first episodes ever talking about the film Macabre. It's within the first 5, I believe, episodes. And then come back and then watch Sumala, because this is another really great film. And I knew nothing about this movie going into it. I didn't look up anything except for the official poster, and I didn't even see the tile on Netflix until this very day that I turned it on to watch the film. And I could see that this was going to be right up my alley. You know, I love myself a creepy kid movie. You know, I love myself ghosts and demons and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing that I love more than anything, Lydia, is a queen that claps back. I love these types of revenge films.
It is one of those very classic revenge films. So classic, in fact, that it's apparently based on a urban myth, a urban legend, or a cautionary tale, as we were discussing before the show, and we'll get to that. But I also know that you don't mind an Indonesian horror film because there are so many. We love them here in this house. And if you think you can't name an Indonesian horror film, you've at least probably seen VHS 2's Timo Tjahjanto's section within VHS, Safe Haven. Amazing, violent, perfect, the best.
I love that.
The shining gem on that particular collection, VHS 2. You may have seen The Raid, not a horror film, but it's horrific.
One of the greatest action films. I'm a huge fan of that. I had Cassandra watch that film. They were obsessed with that movie and the sequel as well. A masterpiece.
I thought that was Filipino for the longest time because I worked with a couple Filipino girls, and there was one in particular that was like swooning, heartthrob, idol level of adoration for the lead character in that film. And she was like she would leave her husband in a heartbeat for that guy, kind of thing. Like very seriously in love with that actor. I don't know why I just assumed he was Filipino because of that, but I don't know if the actor himself is, but I'm pretty sure he's Indonesian as well. But yeah, we have loved quite a few films. The Mo Brothers film, of which Tio Tjahjanto is one half of, May the Devil Take You, Killers, Macabre, of course, Satan's Slaves, all really, 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 really good movies. I don't remember if I've actually seen Impetigore, but I love the poster for it. So you may have stumbled upon one.
That's a brilliant movie.
Is it? Yeah. I don't remember if I've seen it.
Oh my God.
I'm going to bring it up
I love that movie.
See if I have seen it. And hell, I'll watch it again if I have, because I'll probably love it. But it's that marriage of very lush backdrops, a very interesting take on orchestral music, and a rich background of mythology within their culture. Beautiful people, beautiful actors, very serious actors in all of these Indonesian films, let alone Sumala today that we'll talk about. It's a very serious, and I gotta say, there's gotta be lots of money behind this. Or it's that passion of a very large group of people, because you often see in a lot of these films that I've just mentioned, there's a lot of extras and there's a lot of architecture available. I don't know if it's just the community puts their heart out and lets filmmakers do what they want, or if it's just money that allows them to do what they want.
It might just be a point of pride too, because man, do these movies come out, and I feel like they get enough international attention when they hit really big. I'm thinking in particular films like In Pentagore. I feel like if you're a horror fan and you like foreign films, for the most part, you've seen or at least heard of that film, seen the poster. And if you're an action film fan, I feel like when The Raid came out, everybody was talking about that movie.
Yeah, big time, big time. I went to the presser for that, and it was standing room only. They'd oversold, not only to like contest winners on the radio or whatever, but they packed it with press. It was so full in that theater. But this film is directed by Rizal Montavani, a name I've never heard of before. He has a lot of films under his belt, dozens and dozens, a lot of horror. He has a series called The Chanting, which I'm going to check out. And maybe someday we'll bring The Chanting 1, 2, 3, or maybe 4 to the show. But I think this is his first big North American success, because looking at his films, I didn't recognize one of them, not one of them. And I'm not saying I'm any sort of specialist on foreign horror from like outside of North America, but I've seen a lot of one sheets and I've seen a lot of, film titles in my time, and I didn't recognize any of them. So I'm going to check this out because he did such a good job here. There's a few things, like when we were talking before we're hitting record, there's a few things to improve on, but otherwise, like, I enjoyed the shit out of this to the point that I jumped on it immediately. Halfway through, I decided I wanted to try and bring this to the show.
I remember during our discussion about what we wanted to do next, you had said, part of me just wants to say, because initially, gang, if you must know, sometimes when Lydia's not sure about doing something for the show, she'll ask me to watch it first and then see if I think it could be good material for the show. And she had said in the midst of the discussion, part of me just wants to say, fuck it. No, we're doing this one as our next episode. And for me to see the excitement on my dear friend's face and the body language, you have to understand, gang, Lydia is about at a 3 to 4 at most of the time. A nice level, calming presence. So when she's excited about something, we do it for the show because I know it's going to be good and entertaining. So I said, yeah, fuck it. I don't need to watch it. I don't need to look up anything. We're just going to do it for the next episode.
And it'd also be hilarious if you didn't like it, because we haven't really had that happen to the point that we're really totally opposed on something.
I think that maybe at the beginning of the show's run, maybe I might have put my foot down if I really didn't want to talk about something. I think now as I'm older, I've learned how to communicate in a way that is effective at saying my point of view without being insulting or making it a hostile conversation. That wasn't always true. So I think even if I didn't really, because we've done some stuff fairly recently that I was lukewarm on, but I always trust in you, my friend, to perhaps turn it around, and maybe I'll like it if you just explain it to me. But no need, because I like this movie all by itself. But given that fact, what is this movie even about anyways, Lydia?
Witchcraft. Witchcraft is always the answer. You can't find your batteries for your electric toothpaste. I should have turned to a witch. Then I wouldn't have been late to recording today. A witch is always the answer. Witchcraft is the answer. You can't have babies? Witchcraft, motherfucker. You don't know a witch yourself? Just listen to what the hired help is talking about, because they're definitely going to be talking about witchcraft. Have your husband has decrees and you need an heir and you got all this like really adult stuff weighing you down. Witchcraft.
There's an aspect of this film where it's such a coincidence when they have certain conversations. That exact moment when Celastri overhears two people whom we'll never see again talking about the exact problem that she is having is pretty comical. But that's the way it is sometimes. Sometimes things just work out, and sometimes things fall completely apart, even if you have a step-by-step instruction on how to have it not fall apart.
Now, would this be the step-by-step instruction provided by the witch, or the step-by-step instruction, well, the one-step really instruction provided to villagers in the urban myth, kind of urban legend, cautionary tale, bone setter, kind of Baba Yaga story here going on, where just don't go out at night?
Parents have been telling kids not to go out at night since I think night was invented. No matter what.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it makes a lot of practical sense. It's less safe at night. There's larger predators that would come out if you were in a more rural or perhaps ancient times. So I can see that stories like this would, permeate throughout the culture over the centuries, and why there would be folk tales and urban legends and similar things to this. But this is the one story that is evidently, according to the filmmakers, very specific to this region.
Yeah, this is a specific area, Semarang Regency within central Indonesia. And I looked it up a little bit. I got sidetracked, but I looked it up a little bit and it seemed to be like, okay, I don't see anything predating 2003 on the internet about this story. And I tried typing it in different ways because, like, Wes and I have recently discovered we don't speak Indonesian. And I tried looking.
Recently, yeah.
Yeah, like we tried. We tried. Um, so I'm like, there could be another name. How would we ever know? It could be a different prefecture, a different area, a different regency, a different, like, it could be a different country. Like Java has a lot of very similar stories. Lots of places in the East have a lot of stories like this. And we've covered stories like Slipmouth Woman that have like cautionary tales or revenge stories, or I love those sorts of stories, especially when it's don't go out at night or blank will get you. So it could be any name. It might not be necessarily Sumala. It might not even be twins. It might not even be a little girl, because these stories bend and shift over time. And it could be an animal story. It could be twin alligators where the story started, much like twin man-eating lions that are overly predatory and killing a village. Like, that actual story has happened. So it could be something as far-fetched as that is so far away from this original story. We'll never know, because it is just basically don't go out at night or blank will get you. And it could have existed. I couldn't find it, but then again, I didn't look super deeply and don't speak Indonesian.
No, the Wikipedia page, after I had watched the film, I decided to look it up, and funnily enough, I was reading the first paragraph and my brain was like, wait, what? I don't understand any of these words. Oh, this is not in English. And it's hilarious to me that I didn't basically realize that in the first place.
I had the same problem looking at the director's filmography on IMDb. I was just like, of course I don't recognize any of these. I don't speak this language. So I had to look at not his I was looking at his Wikipedia, his Indonesian Wikipedia. I had to look at Internet Movie Database where they actually would translate some of the titles, but yeah. It does say on the Wikipedia in Indonesian, if you translate it, that the film story is based on a legend claimed to be a true story that occurred in a remote village in Semarang Regency in the 40s, narrated by Bang Bet's illustration on his YouTube channel. So I'll have to go and look at that to see if I can find it, and an X thread. So that was around 2023 from what I understand.
Interesting. But in terms of the film, we are going to jumpstart into the hustle and bustle of modern day 1976 Semarang. And we are going to see a group of children playing. They're going to make themselves a soccer ball. They're going to go out into the cornfields and play soccer. Couldn't help but notice. Very wet and muddy. No one's wearing any shoes. That would drive me crazy. But I digress. The only rule that these kids have when they're going to go play is that they must be home before dark. One of their fathers is going to explain this to them. Of course, all the kids except for two boys end up doing that, and one of them hoofs the ball, as little boys are wont to do, and it's gone. Now, they went to all the trouble to make it. They must go retrieve it, and it becomes very clear that these kids are not alone, and they are faced with a hunched, pale, fray-haired I want to talk about a 4-head. This one's got an 8-head. Sharp, piranha-like teeth girl who butchers one of the boys. And one of them returns to the village, the one that's alive. They gather a huge mob. And when everyone finds this kid's body, obviously the father is distraught. And they immediately think, for some reason, the only explanation is that this little boy killed his friend and is trying to act as though he didn't, until he says that it was some girl. And then out of the crowd comes a well-dressed, young but wise, and I know he's wise because of the way he's standing. Only wise people stand like that, Lydia. And he says, I believe him. And he begins to speak of that girl. And everyone seems to be kind of jolted back to remembering this. And they go, yes, it must be this girl. And just in case, he is going to tell us all this story. So not only is this taking place in 1976, but we are going to flash back again to the 1950s.
I like this setup. The two little boys, the character's name, Abdi and Satrizno, very good little actors. It's quite brutal. We get like some vicious head trauma and attacks and gore, and they do not hold back with violence against children in this beginning, like for the whole film really too. But like the beginning is quite shocking. And I think that I was very interested in this film from the get-go because of the abject violence wrought upon these children. Coupled with this lush village, this wonderful crowd that is gathered, much like Jesus on the steps speaking with the teachers. Like there's this whole crowd listening to this guy with a lame eye talking about this urban legend and why people shouldn't go out after dark. And it made me think so much of like animal attacks and like personifying a rogue alligator or something because of the way that the little boy's body's found by the riverside. I thought, ooh, is this going to be a story that is like, it's not explained away by being an animal, but the real story was probably an animal doing this, but they blamed it on like a little girl spirit that haunts the cornfields. It's just so lush. It's lit so well. The music is done so well. And the acting is so good to this point. I was so taken with this story. And then it starts a whole other mythology where we meet Soljaman and his wife, whose name I forgot, Solastri. And his wife, Solastri, who is the jewel of his life. And he'll do anything for her. And his uncle, who he's bought whatever land off of, is like a gangster type. Like they're having like this gangster meeting. So it became a whole other sort of 1950s gangster type feeling.
We get the sense fairly immediately that Soljaman's uncle is there to stake claim on this land. You see, the problem is that his uncle, his father's brother, both Soljaman's parents have passed away and have left the estate to him. He's quite wealthy. I mean, it's a very affluent, it's a huge house. He's got servants. He's rich. And
it's more like a villa even, because there are outhouses and buildings and not outhouses like the type you take a poop in, but like outer buildings and a huge barn. And there's, it's like a very large estate.
But the problem is he has produced no heir, which means that the best thing to do is to sign that land over to his uncle, who we presume has children of his own and they could inherit and keep it secure within the family. Because his uncle's point of view is, quite ruthlessly, if you are going to never produce an heir, then we're all just kind of biding our time here until you die. And then I don't know if it would be the government or if the land comes up for grabs to potential other buyers, but the idea is to keep this house and land in the family, and the only way to do that, according to the uncle, is to sign it over to him. And of course, Sojaman is quite upset about this, and I think that it's compounded by the fact that he has an issue walking. He had a birth defect, or however you want to call it, and so he also is being kind of mocked for his lack of virility by his uncle, and his uncle sort of saying, you have this beautiful wife, and if I had a wife as beautiful as that, I would have had 8 kids by now in all of this time that you guys have been together. And this causes him to quite wrongfully, and it was something that I had a really hard time getting past, put the burden of their lack of children on his wife. It's about her rotten womb. He didn't say rotten, but he needed to fix her womb. And he says this several times. And Solastri is obviously stressed out. She doesn't want her husband to be upset. She wants to help him. He doesn't want her help. He's very prideful, and he feels emasculated in this situation. And he threatens that within the year, if you have not produced an heir for me, I will remarry. So, what a romantic.
Yeah, like, just get a concubine, man. That will just solve everything. Even if it's a secret concubine. I mean, you might have to go to the village even to get one, because, like, you know, just do what you got to do instead of threatening one another. But you know, as I said before, the only answer to this is definitely witchcraft. It's why he can walk today. We don't find this out till later, so it's a huge spoiler alert. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
I feel as though the burden of the ability to have children is heaped upon Solastri, and so she is the one that needs to come up with a solution by any means necessary. And so she is the one that overhears these servants talking about this witch who can make people pregnant. And it seems like a golden opportunity. Yes, you could say that Solastri is trying to make sure that she maintains the level of comfort that she is accustomed to. She doesn't want to get thrown out on the street and potentially remarried. There's zero evidence that we know that she is the problem in the first place. But I digress. She goes to this witch who is going to explain this cockamamie plan that she has that is going to ensure that Solastri has children.
I think I don't get upset about the patriarchal decision making here, because I've really resigned myself to not worrying so much about things that aren't happening today. Now, if this was a story that was happening down the road today, then this guy needs some education. And you can't rely on the idea of, like, oh, it's okay that the stupid man believes that it's the womb's problem. We all know he's probably firing blanks. All us women, the wise women, the witches of the world, would know that it's okay that, like, how would you expect him to know how women's bodies work? You know, you can't, like, have that sort of attitude about it in this day and age. But even in the 70s, you know, even in the 80s, when a lot of men thought that women peed out of the same hole they had babies out of, that sort of, like, thinking, you shouldn't worry yourself too much about getting angry at all about it, because that is just how their brains worked. Barely at all when it came to women's bodies and like how baby making worked, because as far as he knew, he put it in there and babies came out, right? So he's put it in there, whereas the baby's coming out. So I kind of get his pain and like his problem.
I do, in the context of it being a story that's taking place in the 1950s.
Yeah.
But I think that for me, it does make all of his next decisions all within keeping to generally a shitty dude. And for me, I don't really think that his image recovered enough for them trying to. I view this as a righteous killing movie. I believe Sumala, evil or not, is completely righteous and correct in her actions. And so I find it funny that they tried to somehow try to make me feel bad for this guy.
Yeah.
Effective or not. And by the way, I'm not saying that this ruined anything for me. That's not what I'm saying at all. And the only reason why I'm bringing it up is just, if anything, to praise the consistency of the character.
His ignorance makes a big moment for him later on in the film kind of hilarious, because you do not give a shit about him. Yeah.
Yes, and I think Sumala's words to him. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think we'll talk about that. But Sumala's, let's say, final words to him later on, I think, is that epiphany moment come too late. And so it's a good moral lesson for dumb fucks. So now we are going to go through this ritual. Celastri's going to do some spider walking.
Like Grandma Tukina is the wise woman on the edge of town. You know, that's who you turn to. It's who you turn to in Pumpkinhead. It's who you turn to in Drag Me to Hell. It's who you turn to. Mm-hmm. It's who you turn to. It's the witch on the edge of town, man. Every video game has a witch on the edge of town. Adria is the witch from Diablo, and this is kind of what, like, I wish she was this evil. Grandma Tukina is so cool. And these are two very beautiful women in very different ways. We have the very put together Celastri, who is gorgeous, much like the woman, is it Dara in Macabre?
Yes, I couldn't help but notice, while they don't look similar in the face, just that the hair and the everything so put together and just so in their dress, I couldn't help but think of Dara.
Just so poised, so perfect, so porcelain beautiful, and dressed so perfectly. And then we have an equally beautiful woman in not quite a hag. She's an old witch, maybe a little older, but she has healthy skin and bright eyes and big black lipstick look to her. And she's darkened skinned and just very theatrical, very active with looking like a tongue, like in a toad-like fashion, and just evil but fun looking. She looks like the kind of girl you'd like to go and do shots with, I guess.
Also helpful, because one of the things that I will say for our witch is she genuinely is giving a step-by-step instruction on what she's going to do, what are the consequences, and how you avoid something fucking it up. Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, I felt like it was beyond the realm of true neutral and probably neutral good.
Mm-hmm. And she's very honest, because she's like straight up like, okay, I serve Satan, right? So let's get that out of the way. And this is what's going to happen. And I thought we were in for a protracted, overly feminist meeting of two women to do womanly things. And then she'd be bathed in fucking rose water or some shit. And then eventually go like seduce her husband. Oh, no. This is an extremely physical, very quick, instant pregnancy that is vaguely demonic.
I was shocked about the speed of the pregnancy. I was thinking, oh, look at this. You don't have to deal with 9 months of pregnancy. She's just pregnant. And it's funny that Sojaman doesn't really question it. I think he's just happy that he's got an heir, and he's like, go and tell everyone in the village. There was a part of me that would think, why would anyone care? These people are not your friends. Like
No, if
they're
it's a
effectively
fiefdom of some sort. Yeah, like if he like, I don't know, maybe they pay taxes to him or he gives them free land or something to farm. I don't know what the situation is.
they don't really have any deference towards him, particularly when they form a mob against him. I think that if anything, maybe they would look to him as a community leader just because his family would have owned that at least for 2 generations. I would assume that his grandfather or even great grandfather might have also owned that estate. So it probably is just a matter of course. And, oh, we have an heir, like he's royalty or something, like anyone would give a shit. But maybe they do. And he's very excited. And his wife is about to give birth. And we know that she is going to have twins. And we know that one is going to be evil. Now, Lydia, this is the caveat to your evil baby. You can't be mean to your evil baby. You must take care of your evil baby. But only for 10 years. That's the sweetest plum. 10 years evil baby. We can do evil baby for 10 years because guess what's going to happen on midnight of your evil baby's 10th birthday? The devil's just going to go ahead and take her. So you don't have anything to worry about. It's just going to be a pain in the ass for a little bit. You're going to have a good baby that you can keep. Now, if you don't take care of your evil baby properly, tragedy will befall your family, and it will only get worse over the years. So, whatever you do, Lydia, take care of your evil baby. Oopsie doopsie. Sojaman kills it immediately.
Yeah, immediately with a gorgeous ceremonial blade. It is the beginning of the knife show here at Sumala because it's just from here on out, it's just all I could notice was just all of these knives and fighting knives and weapons and machetes and ceremonial daggers and just knives. Why he kills it, we were talking about this before the show. We're not really sure. One baby looks stillborn, one baby looks evil. It smells bad. I don't know.
Antisum basically says, one is stillborn and I'm sorry. And the other one is deformed. It's hard to tell how she's supposed to be deformed because it's a bloody newborn baby. They all kind of look the same. But I guess he believes that this is just yet another example of my wife's sour womb, and he's so disheartened, and I can't possibly have a deformed baby. So he stabs it immediately. And upon that baby's death, I'm not saying they're related, but it just so happens that you start hearing the telltale cries of good baby who is indeed alive. Now, she is a little bit behind in her development. We jump ahead 3 years, and this kid has still not learned how to speak. I thought that she was going to be mute or otherwise incommunicado for the remainder of the film. I see. She's got, her arm up a little bit. She has trouble walking. Apparently, her father also had some physical ailments when he was young. And so we can see that this is just genetics, and perhaps she'll never speak. And you can see the resentment on the whole situation because she's 3 years old. That's bad enough anyway when you're raising a kid. Now she can't really communicate and she is getting frustrated. She doesn't really listen to her parents and they seem immediately at wit's end. Even though they have so much help, they have servants, they have all the time in the world, and yet it's still too much.
She's treated terribly. And what a great little actress. I really enjoy her portrayal of this angry, teeth gnashing, head hitting, like angry little girl who is probably being mistreated by everyone around her. If no, well, not necessarily mistreated, just the sheer neglect is enough to bring up this sort of anger. And if you believe the Miracle Worker film, this is what Helen Keller was like before she met her nursemaid that helped her learn how to communicate, because she was neglected on one hand and deaf and mute in her case. So she had and blind, so she didn't know what this world was. It was probably like this unbelievable torture every day, and fear and anger. And that's sort of like what we get channeled here. And I enjoy it very much. The only person that's very nice to her at all is this one auntie of hers, just a godsend, one of the nicer people. And you know what? Sukir of Sukir Tell the Village, he's not so bad. He only ties her up because he's ordered to, right? He's not so bad.
There's definitely moments with that dude where he seems to be bordering on sadistic. Like he seems to really like it. And at first I was like, oh man, this is just like a bad situation for everybody. All these servants having to follow these orders. But then by the time she's 8-9 years old, he's like reveling in it almost. I don't know if he just like is sick of her and all of her nonsense. She has this tendency to be disobedient. She has this tendency to act out, but it doesn't help that her parents, her mother tries to do her best, but her father, the resentment builds and becomes aggression. He slaps her, he scolds her. He is like drags her around, ties her up, like strings her up in a cornfield, leaves her out there. There's all kinds of just different levels of psychological and physical abuse happening to this child while everyone else is just, I mean, like there's something strange about the dynamic here because it seems like no one's really on this guy's side. But aside from him being their employer, it's almost as if he wields the power of royalty. And I keep feeling that I'm missing something. Like this guy can't send you to the gallows. Why are you all afraid of him?
I know. And I don't know. There's got to be some things like the choices of Sumala's hairstyle and the very large forehead kind of look, or maybe like you can talk about why everyone has knives, like so many fucking knives. But the fact that he is like a prince or something in that area. There's things about Indonesian culture that we, maybe don't recognize or don't understand. It is like colloquially lost in translation. So there's got to be something about their relationship as far as him being like some sort of royalty. He's got to be. He just has to be because of the way that people treat him. And like the servants all seem pretty happy. I mean, there's not a happy day in Secur's life, I don't think, just because he's an unhappy individual. But all the other people around this family seem to be okay. It's weird that the mother never does anything. I mean, even at points where she could discipline Sumala or Kumala, as she's actually known, because there's the good girl named actually Kumala and the girl Sumala, who was apparently the dead one. She tries to like discipline her, but not really. She didn't have anything to say when her baby was stabbed in front of her. She doesn't have much to say when the kid's being tied up, except for just no, 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 kind of faintly. And then she gets sort of hustled out of the room. Kamala decides to pee on the table one night at dinner, and she just sort of recoils. She doesn't really like do anything as a parent.
Her dad's reaction, how rude. But there is an aspect of this film, and in the first hour, this movie runs just under 2 hours. The first hour or so, once you get into the flashback storytelling where we are learning the origins of Kumala and consequently Sumala, evil baby and good baby, and you get this lull where you might be watching a drama about a horribly abused girl, her aunt who tries to protect her the best that she can. We say aunt, but it's not like it's really it's another housemaid, right? It's like somebody who would be hired by the house to look after this, and she calls her aunt, and she's very sweet. They have a lovely relationship. She makes her little doll. I get a little emotional at scenes like this. I don't know what it is, but I'm just a kind of a wishy-washy guy. And so when it was on the eve of her 8th birthday, after her father lashes her, like, like fucking Christ, and hands her this doll. It's all very sweet, but you forget that you're watching any sort of supernatural horror film, because there is a good chunk of time where you're just kind of watching people be miserable to this little girl. She tries to escape to get out of the house and see other children, but this is something that she doesn't really get to do because her father is clearly ashamed of her. And the kids also see that she's different and bullies her and throws rocks at her. And then after these kids bully and throw rocks at her, she is sent back to her fucking and gets lashed. And then, do you want to play piano? Do you get this doll? Oh, it's so heartbreaking. I feel so bad. But going back to the actress that plays Kumala, Michaela Rose Healy, she is doing all of this. The youngest cast member is doing all of this fucking heavy lifting on these scenes, and there's some genuinely heartbreaking and tender moments. And then reprieve comes in the form of Sumala, now the same age apparently as her sister Kumala, and is offering what she has always wanted: a friend. Not just any friend, but a best friend, and someone who will protect her. And she will see night will become day, day will become night. It is going to be all different now. And we see her hugging. She first recoils at her sister's appearance because she does look like a fucking deadite. But now, well, she does, right?
She does. She does look like a deadite. Like, there's nothing hidden here. We see Kamala on the cover. We see her, or Sumala rather. We see her on the cover. We see her at the beginning. We see her now. And she is monstrous. Demonic.
Yeah, just hunched and angry and quite murderous. And plus, we've already seen her kill a little boy. Get used to that. So now it is the sense of, how is this character, Sumala, going to protect her sister? We learn how she's going to do this through possession, because her father, again, slaps her in the mouth for just playing piano. Now, to be fair, I get it. It's late. You're mad, but like, you've already lashed this kid. Now you're hitting her in the fucking face for playing piano. You're a monster. You're a piece of shit. And she then becomes possessed, and it's this full body transformation. We see this actress that is like holding her arm up in such a way. I can't remember what you call that when your arm is kind of frozen in that position, but she also has a bit of a limp, and she has a bit of a head hunch or something like that. And then we see this full body transformation and the change in the face. They don't add makeup or any effects. We don't really see Sumala, we see Kumala acting now differently. And it's like a different person. It's crazy how
Yeah,
good
she
of a
does.
job she does.
Really good job. I believe palsy might have been the word you're looking for with the arm, having a slightly withered arm. Uh, and it's a good acting in that we get very used to her stance as Kamala, and to see her body just relax into the evil that she is overtaken with is just amazingly good. And she's up against other child actors. There's lots of kids in this movie. That she's the youngest is interesting to me. I can believe it. But just what a great actress up against these kids that she's going to go and face off with at night outside shortly. The same kids that were throwing rocks at her. And they do such a good job of using these sort of like archetypal ideas, like the evil father that is cruel to the daughter. We get to see that turned up to 11. He's extremely cruel. We get to see the kids out there saying horrible things, calling her horrible names, and being like extra vile. They're really, really terrible. And they're the hammiest little ham actors. They are just, what would you say, tearing up the scenery is chewing the scenery or whatever?
Yeah, chewing in the scenery. Yeah, they're eating a whole ham.
I really think that they're such little hams. Well, they're up against this amazing actress, right? That is
Yeah,
younger than them. So they have to step on heads to get noticed here. And boy, do they overact. They overact every minute of the day, these kids. And it's hilarious.
there's something also really interesting about the physicality of this, and I don't know if young Michaela had stunt doubles for certain scenes. Obviously, through most of the close-up shots and the physical front shots, that's all her. But when she inevitably gets her revenge on this pack of hooligan boys that are just like I'll never understand. I guess like mob ends. I'll never understand like picking on someone like that. But man, like it reminded me so much of the uh, police station scene in Malignant, where all of a sudden this movie that was not this genre now all of a sudden has straight up action. She uses this curved knife,
A
and she's
karambit,
like
if
doing.
I'm pronouncing it right.
Oh, okay, okay. So she's using that and is like just flipping around and crawling around, and she is as depth as any martial artist with that weapon, and she is just eviscerating these children. And gang, they go for it. They are not shying away. You are seeing children's eyes getting gouged out. You are seeing their, like, there's one kid where she cuts like a fish the length of his fucking spine, and it is just so incredible, and then creates a totem of their heads,
Yeah,
and
like a head
does a little
kebab.
bit of, yeah, does a little bit of street art with these little boys' bodies. And it's so interesting and so cool and so well done that you really have forgotten, like I had said, that you were watching a horror movie, and then all of a sudden Somala makes her appearance, and then all of a sudden we're kind of in Exorcist, Ruby, territories, and we are seeing this, you know, girl going from a quiet, beaten down little girl to like just doing the biggest old pee on the table and stabbing her father and then killing 10 little boys. Like, how many boys did she kill in one scene? I don't know.
Yeah, and really brutal. This is one of the areas where they do use quite a bit of CG though in those kills, and you can understand why they're children. But it's a mix usually of physical and digital. There's a little bit more digital in these scenes though. I get why, but
Mm.
it's also extremely good when they do some physical. We got a very good decapitation here, a lovely full like a full frontal. I don't know why. Like it's a close up. We get to see some really good decapitation to make the head kebab. In the middle of town, which her father gets to see, which I think is hilarious. It's it,
This
I
is
like this scene so much because you have been lulled into a sort of like little urban legend. You're getting told almost a campfire story to almost a drama where, like you'd said, you kind of forget for a while you're watching a horror movie because it just becomes this tragedy. And then this, where the lighting has changed because they're outside and it's so lush. It got these like lush palms and such and corn plants and such that are creating this green backdrop. So you feel very, very isolated and murder, murder most foul. Now, there was a huge Golok machete that she was threatened with earlier because she's supposed to be tied in the woodshed. God knows where she found this fighting dagger because this is literally not a ceremonial knife, which she or Sumala would have been killed with by her father earlier. It's not like a machete that you would find around the town or like what Secure carries. I think he carries like a machete type sword. This is a
mhm.
fighting knife, man, that is designed to gut people. It's brutal, really, really brutal. So of course, her dad's pretty pissed, goes into the woodshed and finds that she has carved a Kumala shaped hole in the side of the wall so she can go out at night. Hence, this is like, there's only one other time where it's like, this is why you don't go out at night. So this is really the first sort of real link to the grounded in reality nowadays story that's being told still somewhere in the future on the steps of this village house, that you don't go out at night because she goes out at night to kill people that she needs to take revenge on. We also get a good mirror of the torchlight mob because we've already had one torchlight mob at the beginning when the boys were missing, Sutrisno and Abdi. Now we get a torchlight mob headed toward Samala's house.
It's funny that all these parents are all up in arms that their kids have been murdered, but yet where the hell were they all when they were tormenting this little girl 2 different times in front of other adults? Now, this is one of those classic movie scenarios in which it would help you to finish your sentence because Sojiman tells the mob that it couldn't possibly be Kumala. But he, at this juncture, knows Sumala's existence. And as the mob like runs away trying to like look for her once they realize that all of this shit has gone down. I suppose like this is actually a little bit further in the narrative, but he's like, it's not Kumala. And I was like, there's more to that sentence, my guy. You just say who it is. But I suppose it'd be hard to convince these people that it's your demonic other daughter that you killed when she was a baby that is now possessing your daughter who's grown up. But there's still the situation of every night Sumala is coming out. And so she needs to be tied up in that barn every single night. Now, we do know about the Shawshank Redemption-esque hole that is being hidden, and that's how she's getting out at night. But during the day, Kumala is basically locked in her room and has no recourse to do anything. Her father is terrified of her, and people think that the treatment of her is cruel. He maintains that since she stabbed him one time with a pen, that if anyone were to let her out of her room or not tie her up in the barn every single night, that he's at risk. He cares most about his self-preservation, and he's quite cold and cruel about it in his demeanor. Now, we know that Sumala is dangerous and has killed, a bunch of boys, but they were assholes anyway, so fuck them. And then here is the biggest crux, is that we know that someone's got a birthday coming up.
What is shocking to me is that she didn't attack Sukir yet, because like he's the guy that's around her the most often. She's the one that has he's the one that she has the chance to kill him. Even as Kamala, you could see that she hates him, and she could have just grabbed his knife at any time.
I wonder if it's a sense of needing to make sure that Kumala is at the most desperate she could be,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting that hatred to boil over, and wanting to focus it the most on the people that are hurting her the most. But there is a fear that it could be indiscriminate, because on the eve of her 10th birthday, she asks her beloved aunt to leave. There's one detail that I didn't really notice until you had mentioned that our storyteller had a cloudy eye. And do we think that it's the aunt's biological son?
It
Because
must be.
she said, because he also has that eye. I didn't notice that our storyteller at the beginning had that eye. But if it is her son, it makes absolute sense, because he's in the background for a few scenes. He doesn't really have a lot of dialogue. And then when she is in tears with her bags packed, he gives one sort of mournful look at the grounds like, oh, we're leaving. And then he turns around and goes with her. So it makes sense why he is aware of this situation, because we'll see him presumably, I think, a little bit later in the film. But,
I think he was a
after he's
little,
done.
yeah, like I think that he also not only survives all of this, but he had a more positive outlook on Kamala. Probably saw all of the
Mm-hmm.
torture that she was enduring, but also saw that she could be sweet, and like she and knew his mother. So like probably he heard more stories about how she was a normal sweet little girl. And when there's one point where she wants to follow the mother, follow Celestri to see where she's gone, she says, okay, I gotta go into the market, so you have to watch Kamala. And he doesn't look at her like, oh no, I don't want to watch Kamala. He says, oh, okay. Like it's normal that
Mm-hmm.
he watches Kamala from time to time. So he would have had a very different relationship with her than what we're seeing. So yeah, he's got to be the same guy. It makes sense why he would know all the very rich details of this story, other than just don't go at night or blank will get you. Yeah, the devil's gonna come knocking, and we get to see the two girls interacting for a little bit as well, which I really like. Really good acting, because the same little girl plays both roles. So when they're hugging one another or standing there confronting their father, that's like a dual role that she's playing, and it's just so lovely. And I also wonder, aside from all of her acting chops we've seen on display here, if she really did eat that cockroach.
Oh, I don't know. I would hope not.
She grabs, you know how like you do when you're trying to like, you know, mean mug for your the person you're about to kill, and you grab like a cockroach, and you like just bite it in half, chew it real slow, you know, like you do.
Yeah, that old chestnut.
Yeah, and it looks like it's a really real roach. Like, yeah, yummy. I don't know, man. Nicolas Cage, eat your heart out.
Sukri's not long for this world. He's going to be the first, well, the first of our main victims, because all of these people that have been tormenting it. And I did think it was a little odd while I was first watching this movie. Sumala does preface her introduction to her sister by saying, I'm going to protect you. No one's going to be able to hurt you. And so you would expect instantaneous retaliation. But even though she does instantly stab her father, and his reaction is somewhat fearful of her, you could see that ultimately this guy is just a humongous bitch. And So but no one else really gets it. And you'd think so many times that Sukri is threatening to slit her throat, tying her in those fucking wooden planks, tying her with rope. I guess he's not doing anything that he's not asked to do. Like, he's not going above and beyond and torturing her or anything like that. But he is menacing her. Like, he's adding extra threats. He's not acting remorseful at all. And in fact, he seems to be reveling in it. So it was curious to me why it took so long to retaliate against this guy. Although I suppose she would wait, or the narrative would wait, just to make it extra good and juicy, because she fucks this dude up and turns him into a Pez dispenser.
Yeah, she's like, I'm gonna make this hurt kind of thing. So that's part of it. But why she toyed with her food, so to speak, why she didn't just cut his head off and be done with him to get to the main event, which is her parents. But he had it coming, because he bites it with a golok, or however you pronounce it, that big machete type knife. And she hangs on to this knife for quite some time, because it comes in very, very useful. Although I really like her much better with like the fighting knife, that curved blade, because it is just so brutal and there's a lot of action in those scenes. This is just about revenge. And she has some really good like villain dialogue with her mother and such. But we also get to see the supernatural aspects of this as well, where her mother sees both girls in the mirror, and it's just a wonderful horror movie section. Like it is very much a horror movie, aside from the action scenes and the tragedy that's going on in the drama. This whole sequence is very much a very bloody, very, very bloody horror. Having the mother dead to rights, so to speak, about like, you knew, why didn't you do anything? You would think that maybe not go so hard on the mother, but I can understand very much blaming the mother for not protecting her, for making this decision in the first place, for allowing her husband to murder one of those babies. Like, the anger here is palpable. Like, you can absolutely understand Kumala / Sumala's anger.
I agree. I think that this both does a balancing act of people who have abusive parents. One of them is absolutely the oppressor and the main source of the abuse. And another parent is the permissible one, the one that should be protecting the most vulnerable, the most innocent, the other adults in the room that should be protecting their child, guilty for not doing what you're supposed to do as their mother. And it's complicated, but at the end of the day, my attitude is always, there's two adults and one kid. Well, the kid's not responsible.
Exactly.
So, you know, you really have, and I feel like this is almost like a wish fantasy of so many people that would be in this, like, their most lizard brain aggression, when they're just like, you look what you allowed happen to me for 10 years. And the spirit of Sumala saying, and by the way, I was murdered. So, so man, does Solastri, it is so, when you look at the entire film, again, it seems disproportionate compared to what the father inevitably gets, because holy fuck, that leg sequence is fucking gross. I was like, oh, that's awful. And there's a lot of implication that she was going to do the same thing to the other leg, but she ends up having this moment, very Deadite. This is like, again, I know we keep mentioning Evil Dead, and I'm sorry, but there's this moment that I think is very effective, where the mother is allowing herself to not make any excuses, but basically just say, I wronged you. I was wrong. I fucked this all up, and can you please forgive me? She wants to talk to Kumala, and there is this moment where Sumala does feel, or look at least, as though she is taken aback by her mother not protesting and professing her innocence, but saying, "You're right. You're right." And so she allows her to speak to Kumala and allowing them a tearful forgiveness. And then she snaps back to Sumala, "I don't forgive you." And she stabs her arm, cuts off her hand, stabs her in the torso, and there she will die. And you might be asking yourself, Lids, where is Sodaman this entire time? He's out to get himself a ceremonial blade that he is going to use.
You know, you can't kill your daughter without a ceremonial blade. I'll just go back really quickly to the two parents, one kid thing that you mentioned. I really think that reminds me a lot of Mickey and Mallory killing Mallory's parents in Natural Born Killers, where she exercises all sorts of revenge, torture, murder on the father, played by Rodney Dangerfield, and the mom. You don't even get to see her kill her mother, but the only line you get out of Mallory is the very double-edged sword of, "You didn't do nothing." Like, okay, so you didn't actually do anything, but you didn't actually do anything. So it's that double meaning of, yeah, you didn't hurt me, but I'm going to kill you anyway, or I'm killing you because you never did anything to stop him being a rapist. So yeah, just a very, very dark, very, very dark ideas, which we get to see played out with the revenge that Sumala excises, and some really good physical gags here. We get lots of like slit throats, cut off hands, all sorts of neat, very good, well acted physical gore too. And that's another thing that really endeared me to this movie. Aside from the opulent dress in this opulent house, we get some opulent gore. Luckily, we get to take it outside in a little bit, but not until the father comes home. With, it's a knife fight now, right?
Yes, he had, see, the old witch, which was initially who they were going to go back because, is there anything that we can do? She's unfortunately passed away. And so Soderman needs to find a different expert, which he does. And it's another local in town. And he tells him that the way to destroy this demon is you need to take this dagger and stab them in the heart, and that'll do it. And so when he comes home and he finally sees what his daughters have done, he cradles his wife. "My darling, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." This is, by the way, the most affection I've ever seen him show towards his wife, as opposed to being just kind of constantly, mildly, and sometimes not so mildly disappointed in her, blaming her for literally everything. "You're infertile. You're not raising our daughter right. You became the devil's bride." All these things that you have done against me, and then only now in her death does he take any responsibility and cradles her and calls her darling. I don't think he called her a pet name the entire movie.
Not to her. Says to her uncle that she's his jewel, and that's the closest. He'll say to someone else how much he adores her, and not even use a real pet name. It's a hard, cold, stony pet name, if you want to get literal about the word jewel. But like, yeah, and then he goes on to have the music swelling, this crying out to the heavens kind of scene, where we do not care. We are like, "Good, you asshole. You deserve this." So it's sort of a weird, bittersweet scene that would be like the Academy Award winning kind of performance here. And he's hamming it up because he is maybe one of the hammier actors in this film. And
Yeah.
boy, it goes on an extra minute, I think, that it ought to.
Yes, I think he was so reserved, quiet, rage, disappointment, stern throughout the entire movie. I think this explosion of emotion is jarring because it seems almost out of character, although who's to say how we react to seeing our significant other butchered. Hopefully we never have to know, but he knows, and this is the choices that he made. So I don't really penalize him. It's a lot. He like if he went to 11, he then hammered off the knob. So now they're going to rally another mob, and this is that moment in which the mob says that, oh, it's Kumala, and she needs to get revenge, but he keeps trying to insist that it's not her. Now, he doesn't say anything else. He just keeps saying through tears that it's her. And now it's the entire town setting out to find this girl who they strongly believe killed a pack of their sons and who's killed a bunch of other people. Mainstays, pillars of their community are now dead, including the beautiful and lovely Solastri, now just a pile of body parts. And this is going to take Sojaman to his final confrontation with Sumala. I don't like the scene change. I like the opulence in the house. I realize now, after briefly talking about macabre, that maybe I just want another blood-soaked room with furniture breaking and all of this opulent, beautiful furniture and scenery getting destroyed. And I feel as though somehow the cornfield just looks cheaper. I don't like how it's lighted, but I get it. And it's not the end of the fucking world. But he does go for the finishing blow. And it begs the question, Liz, could you defeat a 10-year-old girl in a hand-to-hand fight?
Hell no, not me. I am so out of shape. Holy crap. No way. Especially, he has the upper hand. He has a ceremonial dagger and he has this gigantic sword that is a moso or a luak. I don't know. It could be another kind of Indonesian sword, but it has like a blunt, curved handle that is really good for beating the shit out of little girls with. So he has the upper hand. She just has one knife and demonic superpowers. So she has been completely transformed. At this point, Sumala's spirit has intermingled with Kumala, so they're literally one being now. He could see them as two separate girls, and the mother before she died had seen them as both two separate girls and the one being that we know. This being has changed quite a bit. She's transformed into a more demonic presence. Is it to meet her actual father at midnight or whatever time this little girl was born, which marks her exact 10th birthday, when she would be dragged back to hell, I guess, or gently walked there as a loved daughter? I don't know, but she has great big sharp fangs. She's a lot more quick. She's a lot tougher. She can take a fucking sword to the chest and live. She just shakes off any damage. So could I win a fight with a 10-year-old girl? Probably not, and certainly fucking not this one.
She's got those blood red eyes now too, which look really cool. I think it's really effective. Mm-hmm. Now, there is this moment.
I just want to jump in and say I love this setting because, again, it takes it to the story that we're being told, why you can't go out at night, because this creature, this girl, is in the cornfields in the village and will jump and kill anybody who's out at night. So it takes it back to the village's problem. If this movie would have ended in the house, then it would have been like, well, then maybe just avoid that house at night. Right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, just wanted to add that in.
No, that's a very good point. I think narratively speaking, you're right. It is the better option. It's a good way to make it all tie in together. But I think just macabre. It's aesthetically not what I would have liked, and I was a little when I could see that the final fight was going to be taking place in this cornfield. I just, it was just too dark. And yes, you could see everything. I'm not trying to say that you couldn't see anything, but it was so bright that the fight with Salastri in that house is so bright. And I really was digging that aesthetic. But I digress. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't ruin anything. But this possibly is my favorite scene in the entire film, because I love heavy dialogue. I love epiphanies. And I also kind of love a movie that just spells it out for you.
Yeah.
Because I have a comic book writing background, and one of the rules in comic books is if you want to make a point, if you want to make a statement about what your story is about, do not make it obliquely. You don't have enough words. So when she is covered in that sack, she talks about him and knows about his parents. And this is about the cycle of abuse. And remember how you longed for your parents' love, even though that you were born, quote unquote, crippled. And can't you see that Kumala just wanted that love that you longed for? And he gets that realization and epiphany in his eyes. And you can see that he finally, through his thick skull, sees what he has become, this horrible person that was just like his parents. Now, this extra details about his abusive parents, that's not really fed to us until this moment in the film. We know that his parents had died and they left him this estate. We didn't really know the relationship he had with his parents, but now we do. And so that is very interesting, and it's very effective to me anyways. And it does show how he still is hesitant to kind of kill his daughter until it comes to their final scuffle amongst the many scuffles that they have in this cornfield when, she gets the drop on him, stabs her in the chest. And I said out loud, oh, he actually did it. Because there was a part of me that was saying, I don't think he's got it in him to kill Kumala. But he does. Problem is, her organs aren't where you think they'd be actually anymore.
Yeah, she's a mirror image of his daughter, and full mirror image that she has a relocated heart. Maybe as a demon, like she says, my eyes have changed, my teeth have changed, my heart is not here, it's over here. And I thought it was pretty sweet. She's got a horror movie villain in the making all over her. Not only does she murder her fucking father and make fun of him for not being able to murder her, she hunts down the hermit man, the magic man, the juju man, who had given him that ceremonial blade, who also happened to be the medicine man that cured him of his lame leg as a child. And she plants that fucking ceremonial dagger right in his fucking forehead as a final F you. I think she's great. She's just great.
It's a great character. And there's that extra bit of genius of there's only one person in town that knows how to kill her. Not anymore.
Yeah.
There was two people that knew how to kill her, and now there's no people that know how to kill her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this wouldn't be something that our town friend with the one cloudy eye would know, because he wouldn't have been there for this final bit. So it's weird that he's telling us this story, but I guess we've just grabbed it and ran with it, because I really do like to take a campfire story literally. The person who's telling it should really have been privy to everything that's happening. Those work so much better for me. But once that kid leaves the scene, like a half hour ago in the movie, how do we know all of this? I don't know.
It's kind of like when you watch movies where people have been secretly recorded or they're on closed circuit television. And then there's like, look at this. This conversation looked familiar. And they literally just roll back scenes from the movie, including the cuts and wide shots and close-ups. And it's like, this is not how CCTV record. This is not how cameras record people. Why don't you make new footage from a different angle that makes it a little bit more realistic? But they're just like, slicing the scene from the movie. It's completely fine. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of that. I do like how the father ends up strung up on that cross, just like he had cruelly strung up Kumala. And now we're back to the present day, the futuristic world of 1976, Lydia, where we see everyone gathered around this man telling his story, which what I could only presume was 2 hours long and included all kinds of different facets. And they realize that, well, it definitely wasn't this little boy. And the only thing that they can do is present offerings and no children out at night. That goes double for you. And that's it. That's our urban legend. And of course, at the tail end, there's got to be some guy that's like, I don't believe in all this stuff. And well, we know what happens.
Yeah, if he doesn't end up in the bottom of the well like that one kid did to taint all the town's water, who knows? Yeah. And, you know, it has the text at the end to make you really believe that it's based on a true story or it is based on a real urban legend from this area. But you had taken another look online and other people don't know what to think. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's conflicting. The filmmakers say that this is an urban legend that exists within this region. However, there were apparently influencers that went to go and ask about this, and they went to the region, they went to the town that this urban legend is evidently from, and the people who lived there say that it's not true. There is no urban legend. Maybe. Because I couldn't really tell, and perhaps one of our listeners knows, but I couldn't really tell if they were saying the urban legend is inaccurately portrayed in this film. They've added or removed details which make it not entirely faithful to what is believed within the region. Or they were saying that it completely is 100% false and they have never even heard of this person.
Which I really like. I need to check out this YouTube show it's on YouTube. Bang Bet's illustration. It says Sumala, Anak Titipan Iblis. I'm probably not pronouncing any of that right. Pengelman Bang Bet Sendri. So it's Bang Bet's illustration. Now, if it's not in English, we should just be able to wait a little bit and YouTube will eventually be unleashing dubbing to all creators. So I know my channel will get it in a month or so, where if you yourself speak Indonesian, and that's why you're listening to this show, you could listen to our show in your native language eventually on YouTube, and listen to my YouTube show, watch videos in whatever language you like. And it will automatically take like my tone of voice, Wes's tone of voice, and change it into your language of choice, which I think is super cool. So if this video isn't in English, we'll just have to wait a little bit and we'll be able to watch it. But it may have subtitles. I'm just going to check it here to see if it does have like the enhanced subtitles, because you can already change the language on a lot of YouTube things. Yeah, right now it is only auto-generated in Indonesian, so I'll keep my ear to the ground with this particular video, because it was created 11 months ago before the film was in production, because they got the idea from an X post from this creator telling this story. So maybe we'll have an update on this, but I'm curious to see these influencers that went to this village. Because like we were talking about at the beginning, it could have been a more watered down story, a cautionary tale from a different country even that's nearby, let alone a region that's nearby, and could have only afflicted a very small community, because there are like different takes on, say, the bone setter or any other boogeyman that stuffs kids in a bag because they're out after dark. There's all kinds of them around the world. So this could very well be a story from that area that's just a little different, so no one could really track it.
Regardless of how true or not the urban legend could be, I don't suppose for a minute that the urban legend is true. What I mean to say is if the urban legend exists. I think that this film is really interesting. I really liked it. And I really thank you for bringing it to the show, because there's so many films that get put onto Netflix that I never would have been. Again, like you had said, generally speaking, I don't go tile surfing on Netflix. And even if I did, there's no guarantee, because there's something about all of the choice that we have these days. I personally feel crippled by it, where I don't really know what to watch and to when. And sometimes I just appreciate streaming stations that are a little bit slower to add content, so I can really think about how I want to spend my time, because, you know, between jobs and relationships and sleeping and all this kind of stuff that we got to do, making podcasts, making videos, how you decide to sit down and watch a movie, particularly one that would be almost 2 hours, that's premium time, right? That I could be doing any number of other things, particularly as we get older. So but I really think that this film is worth people's time. I think Sumala is a great character. This is a great story. So regardless of whether or not the urban legend is true, although I am very much curious if it is or not, they made a hell of a film here, and it's got a lot to recommend. I really liked it.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm going to check out some more of this director's work, because the chanting specifically sounds interesting to me. A haunted house with teenagers kind of story. So I'm going to look into that.
Hell yeah.
I'm just really glad that you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it, because I love like urban legend stories come to the silver screen, so to speak.
So what do we got next for him?
Coming up next, we have Nosferatu. More than likely.
We do a Nosferatu?
I think so. I'd like to. I'm going to go buy it.
Then we can finally put a stake in that movie and get it done. I'll be excited to see you watch you not even like it. You're just like, we watched it. It's a real stinker. We didn't like this one. I don't want to do it for the show. And then here's what I'll promise our dear listeners. We'll be back after this episode in 2 weeks' time, and we will discuss a movie. It could be Nosferatu. It could be something else. But it will definitely be a new episode of the show.
And thank Sumala for that.
On that note, I'm Wes Knipe.
And I'm Typical Lydia.
And you've been listening to Dead Air. If you like this show, you can find more episodes and other content on splatterpictures.net, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. We also upload all episodes to YouTube now, if you'd prefer to listen that way. You can find us across social media like Instagram, X, and TikTok, and the show is edited by Lydia Peaver and hosted by Lydia Peaver and me, Wes Knight. We'll see you next time.
Music by Anorex at anorex.com.